All right, today we're going to go behind those classic warning signs. You know the ones. We're going to explore a danger that's, well, it's often hidden in plain sight. We're talking about places you probably pass by every single day. And it all kicks off with a simple question. So, what do a silo, a sewer, and a ship's hull have in common? I mean, it sounds a bit like the start of a bad joke, right? They're all completely different, but they share this one common, invisible threat. They are all, you guessed it, confined spaces. And here's the official definition, straight from the safety guidelines. Now, the key thing to get here isn't about size. It's really about three things. A space that's not designed for people, it's tough to get in and out of, and, this is the big one, it can be seriously hazardous to your health and safety. So, here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll nail down exactly what a confined space is. Then, we'll dive into the hidden dangers lurking inside. After that, we'll look at the three-step plan for managing these risks, the official process for getting in safely, and finally, the specialized team that makes it all work. Okay, first up, what is a confined space? It's really important to get this straight. We're talking about more than just a tight squeeze. The definition is all about the potential for risk. And you know what? These spaces are pretty much everywhere in industry and construction. Think about storage tanks, deep pits, those big ventilation ducts, heck, even some sub-basements can count. The thing they all have in common is that restricted entry and the scary potential for a hazardous atmosphere to build up completely unnoticed. Now we're getting to the heart of it, the dangers. Because in a confined space, it's almost never what you can see that's going to get you. It is always the invisible threats. 4. Just 4 minutes. That's how long a person can go without oxygen before they risk brain damage or worse. In a confined space, the very air you're breathing can turn against you in an instant. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? So the hazards get broken down into 4 main buckets. You've got atmospheric dangers like a lack of oxygen or some kind of toxic gas, and those are usually the most immediate threat. But you also have to worry about physical, biological, and even psychological risks, like a sudden onset of claustrophobia. Okay, now this is where it gets really serious. This chart here, it's not just numbers, it quantifies that atmospheric risk we were talking about. So just look at gasoline vapor. It only needs to make up 1.4% of the air, just 1.4%, to become explosive. Think about that. That margin for error is terrifyingly small, right? And that's exactly why measuring this stuff precisely isn't just important, it is literally life-saving. And this image right here, it perfectly illustrates a supercritical point. You can't just stick a detector in the top opening and call it good. See, different gases have different weights. Some, like methane, are lighter than air, so they'll rise to the top. But others are heavier and they'll sink to the bottom. So you absolutely have to test the space at the top, in the middle, and at the bottom to get the real story of what's going on. So with all these deadly, invisible threats, how does anyone ever go into one of these spaces safely? Well, the answer is a systematic plan. Let's take a look at the safety playbook, which is known as HIRARC. HIRARC sounds complicated, but it's a simple, really powerful 3-step process. First, you identify every single possible hazard. Then, you assess the level of risk each one poses. And finally, you put controls in place to get rid of that risk, or at least manage it. Simple, right? Identify, assess, control. And here's the entire philosophy behind it. Safety is not about reacting to an emergency. It's about making sure one never, ever happens in the first place. The whole goal is to create and then confirm a safe environment before a single person even thinks about stepping inside. All right, so let's see how this plan actually translates into the practical rules of entry. This is where all that theory becomes a formal, documented procedure. Yeah, and this is not a suggestion. It is a rule that is set in stone. The entry permit is a formal document. It's basically a checklist that confirms every single safety step has been done. It has to be signed off by a supervisor, and you can think of it as the final gatekeeper that stands between a worker and a potential disaster. So how do you actually control a dangerous atmosphere? Well, the first step is usually forced ventilation. You don't just open a hatch and hope for the best. No way. You actively pump fresh, breathable air into every corner of the space, forcing out any dangerous gases and making sure those oxygen levels are safe. And after you've ventilated, you verify. A trained tester uses gas monitors to confirm that the air is actually safe. But, and this is key, it doesn't stop there. The monitoring is continuous because conditions can change in a heartbeat.
This constant vigilance is what keeps that safe environment safe the whole time.
Now, all this equipment and all these procedures are absolutely vital, but at the very core of this whole system, it's the people. You can think of it as a human-based defense system, where every single person has a critical role to play. The guidelines spell out 4 key roles, and each one has a specific critical responsibility. You've got the entrant, who's actually doing the work, the standby person, who is their lifeline, the supervisor, who's in charge of the whole operation, and the gas tester, who makes sure the air is safe. Now, what I find fascinating about this is the relationship between the entrant and the standby person. It's almost symbiotic. You've got one person inside the space and the other monitoring from the outside. One is the worker, the other is the watcher. That standby person, they are the entrant's lifeline. Their entire job is to focus on that one person, ready to call for rescue at the absolute first sign of trouble. And of course, the team is backed up by some pretty specialized life-saving gear. A breathing apparatus, or SCBA, provides clean air if the environment is toxic. And a full-body harness, well, it's not just for preventing falls. It's a critical tool for a rescue, allowing that standby person to pull an unconscious worker out without having to go in themselves. And this shot, this one brings it all together. It shows the whole system working in perfect harmony. You can see the entrant inside doing some hot work, connected by a lifeline to the attendant, that's the standby person, on the outside. You see the fume extractor pulling out dangerous byproducts right at the source, all while an air monitor keeps a constant watchful eye. It's truly a network of protection. So, here's the main takeaway. Through identifying hazards, controlling risks, using permits, and having a dedicated team, a place that could easily be a death trap is transformed into a manageable, controlled work site. It's just an incredible testament to the power of systematic safety procedures. Kind of makes you think, doesn't it? This is just one example of a highly structured safety system working behind the scenes. So what other invisible procedures are out there quietly protecting people in high-stakes jobs every single day?